thank you so much, everyone, for being here. My name is Andrew Gothard. I'm the statewide president of United Faculty of Florida. And we are so grateful, not just to all of you for showing up to hear everything that our leaders and members have to say today about the importance of public education in the state of Florida, but we are very grateful to the speakers who have joined us today, representing state and national labor leaders, state elected officials, local members, and leaders of local chapters. We have purposefully brought together an array of viewpoints today so that everyone can understand not only the breadth of the issues that we face in Florida and the span of the obstacles that we must overcome in order to protect the basic freedoms of every Floridian in this state, but also to hear the ideas and the hope and the plans that we have for how we will achieve what is actually a free Florida and not the failure of freedom that we are consistently seeing proposed by Governor DeSantis and his supporters in the legislature over the past few weeks, and that we are fearing may come to fruition during the upcoming legislative session, which began today. So we're going to kick off today's events by introducing Caitlin Guiley, who is the first Vice President of United Faculty of Florida. Caitlin Guiley is an Associate Professor of Natural Science at Pasco Hernando State College. She helped organize a new chapter of UFF at Pasco Hernando State College in 2018, and she now serves as first vice president of the statewide UFF. So Caitlin, please go ahead. You have the floor.
Thanks, Andrew. Good afternoon. We are very excited to welcome you to our virtual press conference. I'd like to thank the leaders, members, and press and everyone else for attending today. Students of all backgrounds come to Florida's colleges and universities to gain the knowledge and skills that will allow them to thrive in a globally competitive world. Through the teaching and research of faculty and graduate assistants at Florida's institutions of higher education, students learn how to think, not what to think. A degree or certificate from a Florida college or university means something. It means that you have done the work and that you are ready to take on new challenges. But Governor Ron DeSantis and his political allies want to undermine our world-class system of higher education in order to advance his political goals. Their attacks on our freedom to learn, teach, and research are contrary to American values and threaten the hard work of our students and faculty. They are willing to cause our students and state to suffer so that they can score political points. At UFF, we believe that true democracy, solidarity with each other, and the freedom to learn and explore can only strengthen our state. Today, we are asking citizens to stand up to Ron DeSantis. We must demand that the integrity of our colleges and universities be maintained by protecting students' rights to learn and study, preserving diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, and saving academic freedom and tenure. At UFF, we are committed to a future for higher education in which thinking, teaching, learning, discourse, and academic freedom thrive. By insisting that our leaders are accountable to Floridians and not one man's political aspirations, we can ensure that Florida's higher education remains a gateway to opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. Now we will move to our next speaker, and this is the wonderful, and not just because we have the same name, Andrew Spar, FEA president, or Florida Education Association president. Andrew Spar, as president of FEA, the state's largest association of professional employees, was born and raised in the suburbs of New York City, attending public schools. A violinist since age 6, he earned his bachelor's degree in music education from Ohio State University, graduating in 1994. That same year, he came to Daytona Beach to teach at Torrey T. Small Elementary School, where more than 90% of the students lived in poverty. Throughout his career, Andrew has served on committees and task forces for the AFT. At FEA, he spent 8 years on the executive cabinet, and Andrew has also served on the executive board of the Florida AFL-CIO and was secretary-treasurer of the organization from January 2016 until September 2020. Thank you for joining us, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm honored to be here because we're talking about such an important issue. As Andrew said, I attended public schools, and I think when we all think back to our schoolings, we think about those teachers who most influenced us. You think about the support staff who was there for us when we needed it. When I think about my time at Ohio State University. I think about those professors who had an impact on who I am today, who got me where I needed to be, and who made sure that I had all of the support to be successful. And here's the thing that I've realized as a student, and I realize even now as a parent, the trust, that sacred bond that exists between parents and teachers, the bond that exists and the trust that exists between students and teachers and professors is so important in learning and so important in the success of our students. But what we see happening right now is an attempt to divide, an attempt to break that bond, to break that trust, to undermine our education at all levels, from pre-K through the graduate level. An attempt to turn people on what we know is so important. It's interesting that you hear things like schools are indoctrinating kids, our colleges and universities are indoctrinating kids. Yet, look at students today at the colleges and universities. They get to pick the classes they want to be in. They are encouraged to think independently, to have freedom of thought, to challenge, to question, because that's what learning is. We call it in the education world brain sweat. The idea that you have to be the one doing a lot of the work in the learning process so that you are truly growing as a person and understanding of the world around you and how you fit into that. So what we're seeing right now, as Caitlin was talking about, is an attack on that freedom of thought, that attack on that ability to decide your educational future. And it's being couched in these crazy terms. You hear about parent rights, yet I, as a parent, do not have the right to have my kid read any book that I think is appropriate at school. I, as a parent, don't have the right to make sure that my child is enrolled in AP classes if that's what I want them to be, if that's what we determine is best for them. And then we get to the college level. I have a daughter in 8th grade. I have a daughter in college. And if my daughter in college is told she can't take classes that interact and mean something to her, that have value of her, that excite her about learning, it makes no sense. When we look at the book banning that's going on right now, we have people who have no connection to our schools saying certain books shouldn't be in the classroom. These are not educators. These are not experts. These are people who are taking a list of books without ever reading them and saying, pull them off the shelves, denying students of books that look like them, that connect to them. None of us ever go to a bookstore and just buy any book. We buy books that are interesting to us. We buy books based on what we read on the cover or what someone has recommended, because we're looking for that connection. And kids are no different, whether they're in kindergarten or whether they're at the college level. We all want to be attracted to something that we can relate to. And so what we're seeing happening in Florida by this governor right now is really an assault on free thought, an assault on freedom to learn, and an assault on the freedom to teach. We can't allow that. We can't allow that in a democratic society, because the founding fathers of this country thought it was so important to have an educated citizenry, that the United States of America came up with this concept of public schools for all. And the fact that 85% of children in the state of Florida attend our Florida's public schools. When the governor touts our colleges and universities as being among the best in the nation, but doesn't recognize that the hard work of our professors is what got us there, is a problem. You cannot attack the entities that have made Florida competitive, and you can't take away our competitive edge as what we're seeing happen from this governor. If we do away with AP classes, if you limit the learning opportunities of kids in pre-K through 12 and limit the course offerings in our higher education institution, you are putting Florida at a competitive disadvantage. And you are putting Florida's families in dire straits. That's what we're up against. That's what we will continue to fight, because everyone has to have the freedom to learn wherever that learning may be and in the best way for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Spar. Next up, we have AFT President, American Federation of Teachers President, Randi Weingarten. So as president, I was going to introduce you briefly, Randi.
No problem.
As president of the American Federation of Teachers and AFL-CIO, which is a union of 1.7 million teachers, paraprofessionals and school-related personnel, higher education faculty and staff, nurses and other healthcare professionals, as well as local, state, and federal government employees and early childhood educators. Randi Weingarten leads an organization that is dedicated to the belief that every person in America deserves the freedom to thrive, fueled by opportunity, justice, and a voice in our democracy. President Weingarten holds degrees from Cornell University's School of Industrial and Labor Relations and the Cardozo School of Law. She worked as a lawyer for the Wall Street firm of Strzok and Levon from 1983 to 1986. She's an active member of the Democratic National Committee and numerous professional, civic, religious, and philanthropic organizations. Born in 1957 and raised in Rockland County, New York, Weingarten now resides in the Inwood neighborhood of New York City. And Randi, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for putting this press conference together. And let me also, before I start and say anything else, let me thank the members of UFF who every single day are trying to create the light for Florida students, and they do not deserve to be treated this way. And so thank you. Look, I am a high school social studies teacher who taught AP Gov and who saw the importance of AP to generations of students. My students, I took AP when I was in public high school, and my students took AP in the school I taught in Clara Barton High School for the health professions, and were able to get college credit in a dual enrollment program in high school. All of us, many of us, tell our kids, go to college, go to college, go to college. Parents tell our kids, go to college, go to college, go to college. Why do we say go to college? Why does Florida have public universities all throughout Florida? Why does Florida have some of the best public universities? Why does Florida have some of the best HBCUs? Why does Florida focus on this and focus resources on this? Because what we know is that when our kids have an education that they can rely on, they know then how to navigate the world. They know how to think. They know how to critically think, how to problem solve. And what we do is we create nation builders, the researchers, the educators who help do tremendous things in medicine, in climate issues, in industrial issues, in social studies, in foreign affairs. In fact, Ron DeSantis got his degrees from what is viewed as some of the best schools in the nation who do this kind of deep critical thinking and learning, and expose kids to all of the different things that will help them navigate the world and be the global citizens that we want them to be. So imagine that after last year, when some of these professors won a lawsuit on academic freedom, just like now with Disney, just like now with school teachers whose books are banned, what you see now is a power play by this governor who is settling scores. And the score he is settling right now is to basically say to Floridians throughout Florida, not he's going to work on the issues like housing costs or property insurance or the escalating healthcare costs for seniors. Not that he's going to stand there and support Social Security and Medicare. No, none of the things that Floridians are asking for. What he's saying is he's going to pull the rug out from all academic freedom, from all freedom of thought. That if your thought is different than Ron DeSantis's, you no longer will be able to learn that in Florida's universities. And God forbid you try to teach that, tenure will be taken from you. That's why we're here. That is inconsistent with who our country is. It may be consistent with, you know, Cuba's Fidel Castro. It may be consistent with Vladimir Putin. It may be consistent with Viktor Orban, who did the same exact thing to the university that was started in Hungary in the aftermath of communist Russia. It may be consistent with all of that, but is not consistent with the Amendment, with free values, with freedom of speech, with freedom of association, with freedom of thought, and with what we need to do to help our kids succeed and navigate the world. That is why all of us are fighting this. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you so much, Randi. Next up, we have, and I believe her tech is working now, assuming everything's working appropriately. Next up, we have Irene Mulvey, president of the American Association of University Professors. Irene, before I introduce you, can you confirm that you can hear us and everything's working?
I hope you can hear me. I can hear you only because I called in and I'm on the phone. So I can hear you through the phone. I hope you can hear me. And if the connection is really unstable, I can shut off the video, but I think we're good to go.
Yeah, it's working great. We can see you, we can hear you.
Great.
Perfect. So I'm going to introduce you briefly. So we're so grateful that Dr. Irene Mulvey can be with us today. Again, she's the president of the AAUP, American Association of University Professors. She was elected to that office in 2020, having served multiple terms on the AAUP's Governing Council and its Executive Committee, AAUP's Committee A on Academic Freedom, Tenure, and Governance, which I will note is currently investigating Florida for attacks on academic freedom, and AAUP's Committee T on College and University Governance. She has been a faculty activist and active in the AAUP at the campus, state, and national level for her entire career. She is a professor emerita of mathematics at Fairfield University, where she taught mathematics for 37 years. Thank you so much for being with us today, Irene.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. I'm delighted to be here. I'm going to hide my face so I don't see myself. I just want to thank the organizers, the other speakers, the higher education workers, faculty, staff, administration, everyone in attendance. It's an honor to be here and join you in this fight. I have a lot to say in 5 minutes, so here we go. What we have here in Florida is an all hands on deck red alert. You all know that better than anyone. As president of the American Association of University Professors, I want to explain how and why the incidents in Florida are egregious violations of widely accepted professional norms and academic standards. But more than that, in addition to explaining how academic freedom and meaningful shared governance is undermined by the attacks in Florida, I want to highlight our vision for higher education, similar to what Randi did. There's an important point of view about the role of that higher education is required to play in a democracy, and that point of view is often being lost in the noise and confusion. Higher education in America is organized around the principle that teaching and research must be left to scholars who are experts in their fields. Higher education in a democracy must be organized as a public good. It must contribute to the public good. If the state is dictating what students can learn, what students are forbidden from studying, what faculty can teach, what faculty are prohibited from teaching, we are no longer in a democracy. This is the kind of thing you see in a totalitarian state like Iran or North Korea or Florida. This is dangerous and should frighten all of us. Should frighten anyone who cares about education and democracy. We must fight back. AAUP's 1940 Statement of Principles on Academic Freedom and Tenure, signed by more than 250 scholarly associations and disciplinary associations, it's, you know, the position of the profession clearly states faculty are entitled to freedom in the classroom in discussing their subjects, full freedom in research and publication of the results, freedom from institutional censorship or discipline when they speak or write as citizens. You don't need a nuanced argument or any deep study to see that the educational gag orders on teaching the honest and complicated history of our country, The outright banning of certain majors and minors by the state is a complete violation of faculty's freedom in the classroom. The idea that faculty who are experts in voting rights were forbidden to testify in a voting rights case violates their freedom to disseminate the results of their research, as well as denies them their First Amendment rights as citizens. The destruction of New College is a travesty. The joint statement by the presidents of the Florida Community College system was an appalling violation of both academic freedom and shared governance. These 28 presidents in the FCS vowed to, in a period of less than 2 weeks, evaluate all the courses offered in their institutions and root out any content that promotes, quote, critical race theory or related concepts such as intersectionality, end quote. This is an appalling violation of shared governance as well as institutional censorship by a bunch of bullies so cowardly they'd only do this jointly. Faculty must have the freedom to teach and research, and students must have the freedom to learn without fear of political interference and indoctrination. This is what has made American higher education preeminent. Florida is attempting to undo that century of work faster than most of us would have thought possible. DeSantis will try to bamboozle people into thinking that higher education is a free-for-all with no accountability, and that might be believed by his base. But people in higher education know that's not true. Our system of higher education is preeminent in the world as a result of our promotion, protection, and defense of academic freedom. If academic freedom in public universities in Florida is undermined to such an extent that it's essentially non-existent, then DeSantis will have destroyed higher education in his state. I know some people feel we're being manipulated into playing his game. He's vying for attention capital, very valuable attention capital, in order to create divisions and chaos and appeal to a certain base for votes. He's gearing up for a 2024 presidential run and hopes to make education a political issue. Maybe so, but the danger is real, and we must stand up and speak out. Recruitment and retention of faculty, grad students, and even undergrads will suffer. Education will suffer. Your students will be denied the opportunity to learn and grow. You all in Florida are seeing it and feeling it and living it and experiencing it firsthand. We're here to fight back with you. I'm here to tell you that the AAUP has your back, Florida. We have released so many statements on Florida that I've lost count. As Andrew mentioned, AAUP has a special committee preparing a detailed report on the apparent pattern of politically and racially motivated attacks on higher education in the state. They are at work as we speak. We will continue to use our national platform to speak out when we see these egregious violations of academic freedom and faculty governance. We will join you in coalition and in building coalitions to fight back with the power of the collective. I am certain the majority is on our side. The time to be silent is past. The time to sit on the sidelines is past. At this point, silence becomes complicity. All of higher ed is watching. AAUP is here with educators and students in Florida in the fight with you today and for the long haul. Thank you very much for having me here today, and I look forward to continuing to fight alongside everyone.
Thank you, Irene. That was wonderful. We appreciate you. Next up, we have Noel Candelaria, who is the Secretary Treasurer of the National Education Association. Noel, a special education teacher and former teacher's aide, is from El Paso, Texas, and is past president of the Texas State Teachers Association. He currently serves, as I said, as the Secretary Treasurer of the NEA, which is the nation's largest professional organization. In this role, his primary responsibility is managing and maintaining the association's budget. Noel is the first-generation son of Mexican immigrants who instilled within him the value of quality public education. He has learned and lived the transformative power of public education. Thank you so much, Noel.
Thank you, Andrew, and muchísimas gracias for everything that you all are doing in this fight for education in the state of Florida. Es un honor, it is a pleasure to be here on behalf of NEA's 3 million members across the nation, from pre-K through graduate education, and I'm honored to be here to lend our voice to support our union family, nuestra familia sindical of the Florida Education Association and your students. In particular, we are proud to stand with the United Faculty of Florida and affirm our commitment to the ability of faculty and graduate assistants to teach and seek the truth, free from intimidation or legal limitations. NEA represents public education teachers, support professionals, retired educators, school administrators, and future educators. But we also represent higher education faculty, including both full and part-time tenured and contingent professional and support staff, and graduate employees like my wife in all sectors of higher education, public and private, 2-year and 4-year institutions. Together we continue to fight for academic freedom, safe working and learning conditions, and pay that reflects professional dignity and respect. These dedicated higher education professionals help support and help their students pursue their passions and realize their dreams. We understand that their success is our nation's success. When we welcome students through our doors into lecture halls and classrooms, we prepare them not only to enter the workforce, but to be responsible citizens and position them to be able to appropriate and appreciate and value the world that we all share, the good and the bad. See, in 1948, while a student at Morehouse College, Dr. King wrote an essay on the purpose of education. In that essay, he said that education must enable one to sift and weigh evidence, to discern the true from the false, the real from the unreal, and the facts from the fiction. He went on to say that we should never let our mental life become invaded by legions of half-truths, prejudices, and propaganda. Because if we do, and if we are not careful, Dr. King said, our colleges will produce a group of closed-minded, unscientific, illogical propagandists consumed with immoral acts. Be careful, brethren. Be careful, teachers, he said. And here we are, 75 years later, witnessing a governor and his enablers bent on fulfilling Dr. King's prophecy of perpetuating half-truths, prejudices, and closed-minded generations by limiting what Florida faculty can teach and what students can learn in their classrooms. Diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships, programs, and initiatives, in addition to building and facilitating opportunities for first-generation students, women, people of color, veterans, and students with disabilities to attend Florida's colleges and universities, to discover their interests and talents and contribute to the campus community and beyond. See, as educators, we know that students who are exposed to a truthful and honest education never see themselves as victims or villains. In fact, the research bears out that the discussion of race and racism actually improves academic outcomes for students. It reduces prejudice and opens students' hearts to understanding and inclusivity. But when we suppress truth and the legacy of discrimination and the lived experiences of Black and Brown people, of women and girls, Indigenous, AAPI, and LGBTQ+ individuals, it will sow racial division that leads to increased prejudice, stereotypes, and yes, even violence. As an educator, I have some homework for the governor, for state legislators, and for education policymakers and governing boards. I want to remind them of an evil horror, a massacre that took place in their own backyard in Rosewood, Florida in 1928. An entire Black community was wiped out and murdered by a band of white racists who not only burned their community down, but buried their bodies and covered it up for decades. We can't just wipe this moment away into the dustbins of history with a stroke of a pen. We will not allow honesty in education to become the boogeyman for people who are overly sensitive and unwilling to acknowledge our country's racist history and how it impacts the present. See, every student should learn the history and the diversity of the entire human experience. We need to be able to share that humanity. They need to be able to appreciate and respect the cultures, the ideas and traditions that are not their own. And they need to become open-minded to the idea that all of us have a moral responsibility in our time to fight for equity and racial and social justice for each and every one of us. Together, Florida, we will continue to fight. Vamos a seguir en esta lucha in our state houses, in the courts, and our communities for the fundamental rights to learn and for the truth in education. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you, Andrew. Es un placer estar con ustedes. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you so much, Noel, for those moving comments. That was wonderful. We really appreciate you. All right, and now I am honored to introduce a Florida representative, Representative Yvonne Hinson. And I just want to say on behalf of UFF, Representative Hinson is one of our favorite people to watch during committee hearings. She takes no prisoners and does not put up with half-truths or incomprehensible statements. She really cuts to the core and is a true friend of education. So Representative Hinson proudly represents District 21, which includes parts of Alachua and Marion counties in the Florida House of Representatives. As a former educator and principal, she has a deep understanding of a student's right to learn and a teacher's right to instruct. She can attest to the value that education holds in our society and to the barriers students face in simply seeking the education they deserve. Within the legislature, she has witnessed firsthand attempts to infringe upon academic freedom, and she has worked to fight against this encroachment by the state. Representative Hinson, we are so grateful you've joined us today.
And I'm also grateful to be here, Andrew, and I appreciate you allowing me these few minutes to speak my truth as it pertains to what's going on in the state of Florida. Just recently, I was inducted into the Grand Guard. That is a 50-year inauguration of sorts at the University of Florida, where I'm a double gator. I have a bachelor's in education and a master's in education. I've been a teacher of special education. I think I taught over 20 years before becoming a school principal. I've showed many students how capable they can be when they learn how they learn. When they learn how to think critically, and I'm talking special education students. I help them grow into the incredible people they are today. Many of them bring their children back to show me what they're doing. I created mentors that now mentor. A principal for several years, I was supported my teachers, my staff, and I served my community. I believe we were all one village, fostered growth, and delivered the best education for our students. I'm passionate about education. I was then, I still am now, and I'm always passionate about moving to this generation to the next generation. This is why it's so heartbreaking and infuriating to see the politicization of education that's going on in this state. This governor and his cronies have seized institutes of learning, endangered students, and demonized our teachers. They have made it harder on teachers and professors, and that is why we are losing educators at an unprecedented rate. And it seems that the University of Florida was ground zero for their testing, for their experimentation. At our opening session today, we opened today, this governor did not let up, he doubled down. Let's be clear, what's going on, what we're witnessing is a complete takeover of Florida's public universities. This includes the curriculum, freedom of speech, CRT, DEI, ESG, hiring and firing. We are living in a period not unlike the 1930s Germany. And we need to get serious, Florida. And let me assure all these people in this press conference from other parts of the country, you all need to get serious if this guy runs for president. You better stop him here and stop him in Florida. They're going after our institutions as if we say before the fourth quarter in the swamp, we won't back down. That's what we say at a football game. We are not backing down. Woo! But today, HB 931 came to one of my committees. I'm on the post-secondary education and workforce development committee. They're not backing down either. Today, I had to fight a bill that's pretending to expand viewpoint diversity and intellectual freedom. It was a pretense. I had to surgically go through it and show them where the words coming out of their mouths don't match what they're doing. And I literally had to say, I can't believe what you're saying because I see what you're doing. Now, on the other hand, I filed on behalf of you, the union, HB 311, Post-Secondary Intellectual Freedom and Viewpoint Diversity Bill. This bill will reverse many of the damaging steps that the current radical right-wing administration has taken to limit freedom in colleges and universities. First, it removes provisions relating to intellectual freedom and viewpoint diversity, even though that other bill claims to expand it. It will remove those provisions for assessment within state universities. Our talented and dedicated professors should not be subjected to a survey of their political views. They should not be judged on their politics, but rather the quality of teacher that they are. They should not be judged by how many students they help, not how many left-wing positions they hold. Next, this bill removes prohibition against the State Board of Education and the Board of Governors from shielding specified individuals from free speech or observation of certain ideas and opinions. The bill from last year specifically discusses the First Amendment rights of students and faculty. And I completely agree because I believe in the First Amendment, so much so that I know the First Amendment applied last year before this bill was passed. It applied in 2018 before this governor was elected. It applied in the 1990s, even when Lawton Childs, a Democrat, was the governor. It applied when I was protesting civil rights at 15 years old. The First Amendment has been with us and protected speech. This provision in the last year's bill is not about freedom of speech. It's about protecting hate speech. It's about protecting speech that is harmful and detrimental to learning. And I believe the State Board of Education and the Board of Governors does have a responsibility to protect our students from that. All I will say is that if you are so worried your ideas won't be supported by the First Amendment, maybe reevaluate your ideas. The speech that the First Amendment is licensed to protect was available before this law was passed, and hopefully it will be repealed. I don't know that it will, because we are sitting here in Florida in a super minority on my side of the aisle. They are in a super majority. So everybody's going to have to join this fight. Finally, this bill will remove authorization for students to record video or audio of class lectures. Professors should have a right to tell them if it's okay or if it's not okay. Professors should not be watched or monitored in every classroom they're in. So this academic freedom bill is diametrically opposed to the state-sponsored indoctrination. Now, they got a bill, HB 999. That bill will lead to the firing of tenured professors, reshape the way students are taught. And we're sitting around watching this thing play out when everybody needs to get inside this thing with as much precision as they are operating, because they have a plan and they're putting it in place with surgical precision. And it seems that everybody's watching and waiting until it will be all undone. My bill will support faculty and students of color in higher education. This is a necessary provision as many DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts are being stripped from our state universities. Our diversity is our strength. Inclusion it's our mission, and equity is our goal. These are programs that help students. They are not a political punching bag for this governor. Lord, help us all. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you, Representative Hinson. That was wonderful. We appreciate you so much. Our last speaker before I wrap things up at the end is our local United Faculty of Florida at the University of Florida chapter president, Paul Ortiz, who is a bit of a legend in his own right. We are so glad to have Paul among our leaders. He has been featured in national conferences and national working groups on race and DEI and critical race theory in education. But he is a professor of history and director of the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. And recently he was part of a coalition of UFF members, students, and staff who organized a 3-hour Black Studies teach-in at the University of Florida as part of the Can't Ban Us or Can't Ban US statewide actions in solidarity with Black Studies on February 23rd. Paul, we're so grateful to have you here today.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm just so honored to be here. Let me say, first of all, I'm a very proud constituent of Representative Yvonne Hinson. Thank you, Representative Hinson, for what you do for us every day in the legislature. We're just so grateful. And I'm just really humbled to be here with my union colleagues and comrades. It is the union, the United Faculty of Florida, that keeps me going. It is the United Faculty of Florida and our collective bargaining agreement that preserves what is left of intellectual and academic freedom in the state of Florida. We've been talking about totalitarian societies. We've been talking about our founding fathers, et cetera, all that's great. But it's the collective bargaining agreement with the United Faculty of Florida that is the only thing that is preserving our academic freedom right now. And I want everyone to really think about that for a moment. If you are not a union member, join the union. If you are a public employee in the state of Florida, a teacher or faculty, please join your union if you are not already a member. Andrew, I'm talking today from my office at the University of Florida, and I just finished office hours. And it was so cool to talk to students, and you'll all be glad to know I'm actually teaching my labor history course this semester, and there's more interest than ever in labor history. The course fills the first day of enrollment, but I also wanted to share with you how magical it is to be a professor here at the University of Florida, to be able to work with students. The last conversation I had during my office hours here in this office was with a student who wants to learn about the history of the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, one of the greatest democracy movements in the history of modern history, and the role especially of trade unionists in that movement. But the student is also afraid, as many of my students are, because they see this legislation coming down the pipeline. They've already been subjected to the anti-woke laws as high school students, and they're very fearful that the types of subjects we teach today, Black studies, African-American history, gender studies, will be wiped out by the state of Florida. We know that the ruling class leaders of the state of Florida, the anti-labor bureaucrats, want to eliminate us. And we know this because they've told us point blank, they want to wipe out our unions. I'm also a third generation military veteran. I grew up in a shipyard town, Bremerton, Washington. No one ever talked to us about college. The way I got to college was through diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, such as affirmative action. I know that Ron DeSantis doesn't want me teaching labor history or Black studies at the University of Florida. That's not a big secret. But this is why we have to defend diversity, equity, and inclusion programs more than ever. One of the things, Andrew, that we're just so humbled here at the University of Florida to remember is that the founders of our union were people who fled from dictatorships in Latin America, in Eastern Europe. And because they came from those societies, they made academic freedom the core of our collective bargaining agreement. In our CBA, it's Article 10. We call it the gem of our union contract. And one of the authors of that was Professor Anand Vera, whose family fled from the Pinochet dictatorship in Chile. And so we're holding on to that collective bargaining agreement, but Everyone here needs to understand that Ron DeSantis' first attack in the new year was against the unions, against the K through 12 and the higher education unions, even for HB 999, because he knows that to implement these other fascist practices, he has to eliminate us, the United Faculty of Florida and the Florida Education Association. We're not going to let him do that. The other thing I want to mention is that last year, as a university professor at UF, we had about 60,000 students apply to our university. We could only accept 6,000. And this is true among all of our universities across the state. So many more students want to attend our universities than we can actually admit. This shows we're doing something, I think, pretty well in terms of preparing students for jobs, critical thinking, et cetera, et cetera. So on the one hand, the state cannot attack us and claim we're not doing our jobs. But on the other hand, we realize we are doing our jobs because so many students are trying to get here. I mean, every time I step on this campus, to me, it's a magical moment because, again, I didn't grow up in an academic environment. I just feel so privileged and humbled to be here. And I want to close with how I began, which is for us to think about the connections between unionism, the collective bargaining agreement, and the preservation of academic freedom. We cannot depend on anyone else but the people in this space right now, our allies, who are going to stand with us, people like Representative Hinson. But as an education worker, our collective bargaining agreement to us is sacred, and we're going to hold on to that. We're going to hold on to the rights of unions to organize. We're going to do that not just because we want to defend the rights of our own members. We do. I'm a union president. We have grievances, et cetera, to defend members. But most importantly, it's because academic freedom gives our students the right to major in whatever topic they want to major in, to take whatever classes they want to take, whether it's gender studies or engineering or aerodynamics or whatever. In 1923, the state of Florida told people of color what Black studies was. In 1923, the state of Florida told women what women's studies was. Those days are gone. Those days are gone because generations of faculty, staff, and students, the ancestors, the elders of the people in this room right now, built academic freedom brick by brick in the state of Florida. My university was founded as an all-white, all-Protestant, all-male institution. It took generations of union members, of parents, of students, of alumni, of staff to break down that old apartheid system. We're not going back, Governor DeSantis. We're not going back to the all-white, all-male institution at places like the University of Florida. We're moving forward. In Florida, the union is the ship. All else is the sea. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, Paul. These have all been incredible speakers, so I'm not going to take up too much time with you here at the end, but I do want to bring all of this together. So a little bit about myself. My name is Andrew Gothard, and I'm the statewide president of the United Faculty of Florida. I actually grew up in a very small town in central Alabama of about 7,000 people. So if you hear a little bit of an accent there, I've brought it with me across state lines. And like many people who've come to Florida, I was drawn here by graduate school at the University of Miami. And I've really made a second home here in the Sunshine State. One of the reasons that I'm still here is because I've been an English faculty member at Florida Atlantic University since 2017. And one of the reasons I've stayed at Florida Atlantic University is because of my union, the United Faculty of Florida. UFF, for those who don't know, is the higher education branch of the Florida Education Association. We represent the bargaining interests of over 25,000 higher education faculty and graduate assistants at all 12 state public universities, 16 state and community colleges. We also have 4 K-12 lab schools attached to these universities, 4 Graduate Assistant United chapters, and a retired chapter from the Florida Panhandle to the Florida Keys. So if you throw a dart at Florida, you can find a chapter of UFF in that space. And one of the reasons that I love this union is because this union actually believes in freedom. This union believes in truth. This union and the members who make up this union, we believe in real honesty, and education. And we believe in the rights of every Floridian, regardless of your political background, your race, your religion, your creed, your ideology, whatever it is. You have all of the fundamental rights of the Florida and the United States Constitution that are promised to you. And those rights do not check themselves at the door of a higher education institution, and they are not contingent upon whether Governor DeSantis or his supporters in the legislature agree with you. That is fundamentally what it means to be an American. That's why I get up every morning, and that's why I and the thousands of UFF members who make up our union do the work that we do every day. We recognize that public education, and in our case, specifically public higher education, is a public good. The existence of the university and college system in this state is about the future existence of Florida. And we cannot sacrifice that future in the kiln of one man's political ambition. We cannot say that the future of Florida, the degrees that are available to our students, the freedoms that individuals have to pursue knowledge like a sinking star, as Tennyson would say, that they are not limited so that someone can run for office, so that Governor DeSantis can run for the presidency. We cannot sacrifice that future. And let me tell you some other things I know. I know that I talk to our leaders and our faculty members and our students across the state every day. And we're hearing a lot of narratives coming out of Tallahassee that faculty are all these far left Marxist indoctrinators, that we're somehow forcing students to think various things. And let me tell you something, that is absolutely not true. Our faculty are free thinkers, and they are teaching students to be free thinkers wherever those thoughts lead them. Indoctrination is just simply not happening in higher education, but I can tell you where it is happening. As Representative Hinson already mentioned, HB 999 is currently filed in the legislature. And if you are looking for an example of what state-sponsored indoctrination looks like, look no further, dear reader, because that bill bans subject matter. It says that we can't have majors and minors in areas related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, critical race theory, and now gender studies. It says that American history can only be taught from one perspective, that we can only bring up students and as members of a constitutional republic, that we can't criticize the founding fathers, that we cannot present a complex view of America's history, and we cannot point to a future in which our country can live up to the promises that we have made in our founding documents. That's fascism, 100%. No question. And we at the United Faculty of Florida will rise up every day to oppose that, because we are here to defend everyone, regardless of their political backgrounds and regardless of their beliefs. Now, the existence of SB 256, which is even now being heard in the Senate's Government Oversight and Accountability Committee, this is the bill that would require public sector unions to have 60% density or be disbanded, that will stop unions from being able to deduct payroll, to be able to deduct their dues from payroll, to raise all of these onerous requirements to be a member of a union. The reason that bill exists is for the reason that many of our speakers have identified today. As we've seen in the partisan attack on New College, it is the collective bargaining agreements that have been negotiated by faculty and leaders across this state that are still protecting tenure, that are still protecting academic freedom, that are ensuring that faculty cannot be targeted, harassed, and dismissed just because they voted for somebody other than the governor. That's why SB 256 exists. And that's why we fight back against bills like that, because we know that the voice of the people deserves to be heard, and that when we have a collective voice at work, everybody benefits. There is no doubt that the working conditions of our faculty directly affect the learning conditions of our students. So all Floridians should be rising up to oppose both of these pieces of legislation, both in the way that they want to control the way Floridians believe, act, and think, and in the ways that they want to remove those protections that would keep politicians from reaching into higher education classrooms and telling students what they can and can't think and what they can and can't learn. Bottom line, academic freedom ensures that politicians can't censor the speech and research of students and faculty. Tenure is not a permanent job for lazy professors. It is a protection for faculty of all political backgrounds from unjust political influence. It protects the advancement of our society. It protects the future of Florida. And so we cannot sacrifice tenure just because we're listening to false narratives that are being pushed out of Tallahassee. And here's what I would want to leave you with. If Governor DeSantis and his supporters truly believe that Florida is the freest state in the country, then it's high time they started acting like it. We have to stop these senseless attacks on faculty and teachers who are just doing their jobs the best way they know how. We have to stop banning books, censoring subject matter, and telling Floridians what to think and what to believe. At the end of the day, the solution to a perceived lack of speech is not less speech, it's more. We need to open up more spaces for debate, discussion, and free inquiry across our universities and colleges. We need to expand access to higher education programs, not shut people out. We need to embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives that are designed to ensure every student has a fair shot at a degree in Florida. This is the real future that Florida needs, not the false future promised by Governor DeSantis. UFF and FEA are here to fight for that future until we see it done, because bottom line, as I said before, public education is a public good. We care about all Floridians, not just those whose politics align with the governor's views. And then finally, I will say this: come visit us. Come speak with us. We are all over Florida on every campus you can imagine. There are a lot of wild things being said about who faculty are and what we do. But you know what? These are public education institutions. Come talk to us. Because at the end of the day, we need to start having conversations with one another and stop throwing accusations at each other from across the political aisle. Because I believe there is more that unites us than drives us apart, and that we the people can overcome the fascist tyranny that is coming out of Tallahassee right now for the betterment of all. So thank you everyone for joining us today at this press conference. This has been an awesome event. I have felt so much energy and pride in my union, in my elected officials, and my leaders around the state, seeing and hearing all this speech about what real freedom actually looks like and what real truth means in this state. I'm going to drop a link in the chat for you. And this is for members of the press if you would like to follow up with any of the speakers today. Unfortunately, we can't keep everyone on for a continued time period, but I'm going to put a link in the chat, and we will also send this out after the event to our registered press, and you can follow up with anyone that you've seen today directly to expand on their comments, or to ask other questions you may have, whatever it is you want to do as free press. So there you go. There's that link in the chat for everyone. And again, we will also be sending this out after the event. So thank you again. Please participate in the 3-7 challenge on today's day of action. Continue to contact your legislators. Continue to support the work of Representative Yvonne Hinson in the Florida legislature. Continue to reach out to local students, faculty, and staff about how you as allies can continue to support public education. And let's get in this fight to win it, because the future of Florida hangs in the balance. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.